and you should be good to go.
Great, thank you. Well, we'll call this meeting to order here at 10:33 a.m. June 8th. Looks like we have everybody present currently except for Dennis Smith, who we are expecting to join us at some point. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All right. So I think we have a motion by Jackie and a second by Mark. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please say no. All abstaining, the motion passes unanimously. Which brings us to public comment. Do we have anybody who has called in for public comment, Kyle?
Nope, you have nobody in the waiting room.
Okay. I did receive one emailed public comment. Somebody reached out to Antonio actually, and he forwarded it to me. So thank you, Antonio. I did check; it's less than 500 words, so I'll read that now. Okay, so here's the public comment. My name is Anna Dravelin. I'm writing to address the housing problems that our community is facing, with prices being increased dramatically throughout the county. Over the last 4 years, since I have become disabled, I have watched rent prices go up and up. Recently, I have been advised that a rental company has purchased the building I live in and is raising the rent by almost $400 a month. I am on a month-to-month lease and must be out by July 3rd or sign a 1-year lease committing to the increased rate. There is literally almost nothing available that is affordable. I am working with our local housing associations to try to find low-income or subsidized housing, but I'm finding that to be even more complicated. I have been outright denied for openings at 2 of the low-income housing complexes because I am a single person and all they have is 2 bedrooms available. The other 2 places that have openings will only accept me if I can get an emergency approval for a MSHA voucher. Doing that is also proving to be very complicated. I will see what happens, but I have been told directly that once I am assessed, I will go on a waiting list with the other homeless people. There are openings that I am eligible for, and because of the process related to getting approved, I may end up completely homeless. I have severe health issues because of my brain injury and other chronic illness. I have caregivers that come to my home twice a day and an emotional support animal. The effect this is having on my health, both physical and mental, is devastating. It appears that the only new housing being built is aimed at luxury clients. People that used to rent their apartments out have turned them into Airbnbs for the tourists. Most of the other rentals are aimed at students occupying 3 to 5 bedroom houses. What I am seeing all around me is that Marquette County is becoming a place that where the people that live here can no longer afford to live here. If something isn't done, Marquette is going to lose what is so special about it, our community. There will be no recognizable community left if all we have is tourists, snowbirds, and students. I am respectfully and desperately requesting that you address this as a commission and help find solutions to this very obvious housing crisis. So that was the only public comment we received for today's meeting, which brings us to new business. So the first new...
Can I just address?
Yeah, go ahead, Stephanie.
I just want to say I did do some research on what she was talking about because I heard it from someone else. And the problem was that building had been rented month to month to a bunch of tenants at half of market rate rents and hadn't had any increases. So it's a double-edged sword that there are a lot of rentals that are underpriced, but they also had deferred maintenance and things weren't being done. So there's 2 sides to that coin.
Evan, I think you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just saying thank you, Stephanie. We'll move on to new business. So first, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of our June 2nd, 2021 special meeting?
I'll move we approve the June 2nd minutes.
Okay, do we have a second?
Support.
Great. All right. I think that's Dennis Smith who was able to join us. Thanks for being here, Dennis. So motion by Bob, second by Dennis. All in favor, please say yes.
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 All opposed, please say no. Abstaining. So that passes unanimously. Which brings us to our final and really only business item today, which is to review and discuss the committee's final report. And as I had stated before, my hope is that we'll get to a point where we can take a vote today, because this is our last scheduled meeting and our committee dissolves per city commission resolution on June 30th. So at the start here, and we will be able to do the same thing we did on June 2nd, where Dennis will be able to share his screen, and we can potentially make some edits in real time, although so everybody feels comfortable voting today. I hope that we can maybe not make those edits too dramatic. But Dennis, do you mind sharing your screen? Because I just want to quickly, before we get into any discussion or questions or whatever, I just want to quickly summarize the small number of changes that have been made since the June 2nd meeting. Great, thank you. So we've only made a few changes, really all in response to the discussion that we had on last Wednesday. So first, Dennis, if you can scroll down to page 13. So we went in and we added a paragraph that Sharon Mackey had requested, and a couple other people felt would be a good idea, of acknowledging this issue of rent increases that was discussed in the public comment, and basically trying to come up with some way that the city can potentially help address this issue, recognizing the limits that we are under, and recognizing that the committee doesn't support rent control or anything like that. So you can maybe see it. Let's see, Dennis, I think it's right there at that last, Dennis, if you scroll up a little bit, it's this last paragraph right there in the low-income housing section. I don't know if people had a chance to review that or had any particular thoughts about it.
I mean, if we're suggesting that or encouraging the city commission to include maximum annual limits on rent increases, I mean, isn't that just another way to say rent control?
It says in development agreements that they enter into of developers of new rental housings. So that's not across the board.
Right.
Right.
Specifically.
Okay. I would think that would make it less interesting for developers to create new rental housing then, if there's a limit to what they can. I mean,
I did have calls from developers that are very hesitant after our last meeting of investing in Marquette. And they reached out to me.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, so, okay. So I guess what I'm asking here is, this was a concern that was brought up by several people on the committee at the last meeting, and this was just our attempt to try and address that concern because we were asked to add something in. But it's entirely possible for us to remove this language if the committee wants to remove the language. So I guess I would just ask, what are people's thoughts? I mean, do we think that we should change this in some way, or do we think we should just take this paragraph out?
Personally, I think you're going to scare developers with this in here. You can always help out. You can always make the ask. If there's quid pro quo, you're going to do something, then that's the point when you say, will you add some affordable units? But by doing this, they might just say, well, I don't even want to deal with it. I'll go to Iron Mountain.
Instead of limiting, like instead of talking about limits on rent, can we encourage the commission to prioritize developments that include missing middle or low income housing in addition to whatever else they wanted to build? I think that makes it less, I don't know. I think anytime we talk about limits on rent increases, I think it's probably going to make it less interesting for developers.
Well, and just to jump in here real quick, I don't want to sidetrack the discussion, but I mean, I think, Jackie, I think I totally agree with what you're saying. I think that we kind of are already making that recommendation in other parts of the report. I don't know if people disagree with that, but I feel that that is definitely a big thrust of the report already. This, I think we're trying to address this issue in some way, right? Acknowledging that the city is not going to pass a rent control ordinance or something. What could the city do? What does the city actually have the power and the realistic ability to do about this issue? And this was the best that I think we were able to come up with based on the discussion that we had at the previous meeting. But anyway, whatever other comments people have, please go ahead.
I don't think it's bad to add what Jackie said to this paragraph and take out the part that sounds incredibly unappealing to developers.
Well, I guess it also, I mean, when you read it, it says rent increases, not rent. So it doesn't say they have to start at a certain amount. It would just say they wouldn't be able to raise it, 100% in a year or something like that.
Jackie, the problem is if you look at the BLP increases, unless you're really going to nitpick it horribly, you look at when the BLP did the 30, 30 and 20, it wound up being an effective 90% increase in electric rates. When you have to just cover those, you can't just throw those in. You look at, maybe your paving is going to go on. You got to spend $250,000 on paving. Well, you've got to amortize that into the rents. So we look at it. Our rental increases are approximately 2% per year or less. Some of our better residents don't even see that. I don't know what your increases have been, but I know ours have not been over 2%. There was one place when I reviewed it over the past 5 years where we made a change and we did bump everybody's rent about $40, but then we included cable and Wi-Fi. So, which actually saved people money. So yes, there's a lot of undervalued rentals around here where rents are going up, but I mean, you can talk to other landlords. I mean, we do about a $15, maybe $20 increase on $1,000 rent per year. So, 15%. Or $15, that's a 1.5%. I mean, the rate of inflation is higher than that. So
Dennis,
I don't think these rentals are really going up. Even in one of the statistics I was looking at where you had a 5-year rate, it really wasn't going up that high.
Dennis, can you zoom in a little bit? Because I'm at least having trouble viewing what the edits that you're making there. My apologies.
Yep, no problem. I'll do that right now. Let's see, view.
Thanks, that's wonderful. So I guess what are people?
If you throw that phrase in there, maximum annual limits on rental increases, that is rent control, and people are going to see that and they're going to say, to hell with Marquette on building new. There's so many barriers to new construction. I mean, right now, just cost of materials and labor, forget it. You're not going to get anything new right now. I mean, it's going to have to come down. And you throw in these other barriers, you're going to drive them away.
I hear what you're saying, Mark. I mean, I think there's definitely a major distinction between a rent control ordinance and between like the city including this as a term in a development agreement. But I think your point is well taken that it's something that the city could choose to try and negotiate with people. But maybe it doesn't make sense to have it that as a policy or a recommendation across the board, right?
I really like what Jackie said first. And I don't remember if you know what that was.
It was just to prioritize developments that include middle and low income housing.
One thing I would say, I mean, I would hate to hold our committee out longer, but I don't think you've really looked at how like the HUD and MISTA funding can work. There are specific, I think it's a 223D funding program. I'm not sure if that's the right number on it, but then it does require a certain amount to be subsidized and low income housing. There's ways that you could say we would like to encourage people to use this type of a program in building. But when you say we're going to put maximum annual limits on, that's rent control. And you're going to scare people away.
maybe Dennis, you know, I think like what Jackie was saying originally. So that first sentence in that you have highlighted in yellow there, while the city's ability to address this problem is limited, the committee encourages the city commission to, and then I would maybe say facilitate opportunities for additional low income and missing middle housing development when possible. And then honestly, maybe just get rid of the rest of it based on what the feedback the committee is providing. But I know there's several committee members we haven't heard from yet, so I don't know if folks have different views, but that might be the way I would lean right now, just based on where the committee seems to be at.
You know, this is
I would agree with Evan.
this. Yeah, this is Dennis. I agree with that too. I just take all of
It's
that
much
out.
better.
I think at least identifying, like Mark said, hey, there are some opportunities. We should look at those. I think once we start talking about caps on increases, I don't care if we put in 10%, then they would see that at somewhere down the road it's going to be something else. And I think it's a big issue. We've already identified it's an issue that we've recognized. And if we take that out and just focus more on additional missing ways to do that, I think we're better off.
Okay. Any other final thoughts on that, or are we good kind of leaving this topic and kind of leaving it the way it is right now?
About to hit delete. Speak
I agree
now or
with the
forever
deletion.
hold your peace.
I have a thought here real quick. I know we
Yeah,
talked about this a little bit, but I see this as two distinctions here. We're talking about, and I think we have to be clear about to the audience or public of what we're actually talking about. I see this as there is there's a current existing building or rentals in town that are potentially getting price gouges, even if they are at market or below market rate. That's one, right? That's one of the comments that was being brought to light. So I think we need to just be careful about how we address this and not be too broad about it. And then there is the potential for new development, to Mark's point, that may be wanting to consider projects in the city of Marquette. Completely different, realm. So I think just as we talk about these things, if we could just distinguish between the two, because they're very different. So that's kind of a point of clarification. As I heard some of these comments, I wasn't sure what people were alluding to there. So
I think that's a very valid point, Antonio. The only thing I would say is that at no point do I think our committee was considering an actual rent control ordinance, which is really what, probably the simplest way or the most obvious way, and really one of the only ways I can think of to address the specific problem that was mentioned, say, in the public comment today directly. However, I think that if we're able to get more low-income housing developed in the city of Marquette, then the problem that the person who wrote in today for public comment brought up, and that some other people have brought up to us, is, well, if the rent goes up where you're currently living, as long as there are other affordable options for you, and it sounds like, in this case at least, she qualifies for low-income housing, but there's just not an availability of units. And so maybe that's a way to address that. I know I've had conversations with many people in the community where as soon as you say low-income housing, they say, oh, no, we don't need any more of that. And it's like, no, we do. This is a perfect example of that. So.
And I think what people don't understand in the law of unintended consequences, in places where they have rent control, any sub-market rents go up. So you eliminate any of the sub-market rates that are out there to begin with.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a large body of evidence on rent control, and that it generally just is not very effective and does have a lot of unintended consequences, I think.
In most
cases.
rent controls, you'll see quality of housing go down.
Yeah.
Because there's not the money to reinvest.
Antonio brought up a good point in the comments here, and this is a good point of like a minor secretarial thing. So in page 2 in acknowledgements, can we alphabetize by people's names? for the the different folks who contributed to, how do we describe it? I think we said we ended up going with City of Marquette staff and then background information assistance, I think, for the other contributors we had.
Yeah.
Alphabetized by last name.
Yeah, I can do that. That's easy enough. Is
Sure.
this sentence good? Are you ready to put this to bed?
Yes.
I'm good with it.
Yep.
I added to provide more affordable options, as I think
Yeah.
that's what the gist of the discussion was.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Okay, so that's one of the changes that we made, but now we've cleaned that up. So moving on from that, if we go down to page 17, I just added one sentence in student housing needs about student living conditions. Let me find it. Of course, this isn't entirely unique to students, but I think, it's a very, it's common knowledge that students often find themselves in not great living conditions. Just a second, let me find this here. Yeah. So I just added one sentence. We didn't change this otherwise, but the sentence is, those students who do find affordable options often find themselves living in substandard housing with living conditions sometimes reaching levels that are dangerous or harmful to human health.
Would
I
we
don't
say
think any-
often there? Is that often the case that they're living in substandard conditions?
Is that, how is that happening when we have all rentals are licensed by the city?
Well, only the ones that get the licensing. I mean, I think the person that wrote in with the comment about living in the unheated basement is probably not a licensed rental.
Maybe you should
And-
almost change that to encourage the students to look for the licensing or ask for the licensing. Maybe there's a way to type the address in on some aspect of the city website and make sure it's a licensed rental.
Yeah, I mean, possibly. I also think that, when you've got a 3-year inspection cycle, I don't know, Dennis, if you maybe can speak to this, but I imagine we've got a 3-year rental inspection cycle. A lot can probably happen in 3 years. There's probably a lot of ways.
The main issue that was just mentioned is that there are a bunch of them that we don't know about. And we usually find out about them one of two ways. When the property changes hands and they're sold, and then the new person advertises a triplex or a duplex or something that doesn't have approval for that. So then that kicks in the reaction of going through the rental process, or it may be a complaint from someone that's living in a basement. We don't have the ability to be able to go knock on doors and go in properties and check these things. It has to be triggered by the request for the actual rental certificate. So I find the comment that you added here, Evan, that I think that it's a little bit accurate. I hate to even admit that, but I mean, there are a lot of substandard apartments that aren't caught.
So is our option then to, obviously we can't bang on every door like you said, Dennis, so there's our option really to really work with the university to make sure that those educational opportunities are presented to the students, that they should ask for a certificate so that they'll be comfortable that wherever they're living meets at least the minimum standards that the city set up for habitat.
That's not a bad idea. And, NMU used to have these pre-COVID, they'd have open houses, and my staff would go there along with the fire department staff to educate the students about, what to look for.
Is the problem with that shifty landlord that has a duplex and throws an illegal third unit in the basement?
Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, sometimes.
But they can show a rental certificate.
Yeah, they absolutely could. But I think on the, one way to fix that would be, and I'm not very well versed in the actual certificate itself. But I imagine an easy clean fix, which may already occur, is just listing on the certificate what it's, what it's approved for: duplex, triplex, fourplex.
And is that a
I think it
searchable
states how many
database
units are
for
in
the
each building.
consumer? Okay.
It does, Mark. It states how
I
many
believe it
units.
states how
Yeah,
many.
that's what I thought.
Is that a searchable database?
Uh-huh.
Because that could answer it too, is, confirm that this unit you're looking at is approved by searching online.
Right. And like I said, that's something we normally would do when they used to have their open house. I don't know what the other mechanism would be now. I don't think they've had one for a couple of years.
Maybe what I'm hearing from this is that this number one is a real problem. Which I think, again, that's very difficult to dispute. Number two, what can we do about it? I think maybe what we could do is, we scroll down, if we go to, down to our recommendations, section 3, seek partnerships on page 22. Maybe we add a recommendation J that says work with NMU to work with NMU to help address student housing needs, including educating students about their rights as renters and about, I don't know how you want to phrase that, but maybe that's the solution here.
Well, I mean,
maybe
it's
we
their
could say-
obligation to make sure those kids live in safe places when they're kind of recruiting these kids. So I would think that they have a responsibility, if maybe not legal, but certainly moral, to make sure that they're all aware of, here's what you should be looking for, here's what they should have. Like Mark just said, if you get a certificate that says there's 6 units in this building, you can count 12, then there's something wrong. I mean, there has to be some way that they can start educating kids on living conditions, because if not, they'll lose students. They'll just lose students. We've talked before that if there's not enough housing, that they won't be able to recruit them. But once they're there, they're going to leave. Sound like they're in Stephanie's house where they're coming in, and she's got a separate living license place for them to live. Like Mark said, there's probably, or Dennis said, maybe there's 5 of them down there, and only one's licensed.
Can I ask how many, and I don't know if anybody has a good answer, but I haven't been getting the complaints of the mom and dad coming into my office or calling and saying, my son or daughter rented this place, I got to get them out, I can't have them stay there. I'm not saying there isn't a problem here, but I'm just wondering how big this problem really is. Because I'm not hearing about it the way I used to.
I've seen 2 violations in properties that were for sale in just the last month. Luckily, they were for sale, so that won't continue forward. But can we add to this, Jay, work to educate students about safe rental property practices and disseminate searchable database of licensed rentals?
I think we probably have to go to advise of how to search a rental database. So that might be FOIA protected information or something like that.
Okay. Or confirm rental
Registrations,
yeah.
How's that?
I like that. My only thing would be, I would personally like to add, educate students about safe rental practices, advise of how to obtain rental registration information, and I would just work with Northern Michigan University to educate students about safe rental property practices and their rights as renters or as tenants or whatever, and advise how to obtain rental registration information. Because I think a lot of students just don't even know what they're able to do as renters. Like, they don't even know, like, oh, if there's a bunch of violations and my landlord isn't doing anything about it, I can request an inspection, like stuff like that. They don't even know
I
that.
think this is what Dennis said too. It goes back to the education component, whether that's at, first day of school, some sort of fair, some sort of kind of pamphlet. I think there needs to, it needs to start somewhere. I don't know that that's not happening, but certainly it's a good education platform there to be discovered.
I do believe, or at least it used to be, they had tenant right pamphlets all over campus.
Yeah, those are available at the magistrate's office.
Maybe make it fun, make it like a video now instead of a pamphlet they're just gonna throw away.
TikTok.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like these resources I'm sure that's true that these resources exist. But I think especially with the younger generation, it's like they exist, but how universally known are they? How appealing are they to people? There might be a pamphlet that you see with 10 other pamphlets at this, student affairs office or something, but if there's not, we could be maybe doing more.
But I don't think our job as a committee is to spoon feed the people that are choosing not to get more information.
Yeah, it's easy enough to Google it.
I agree, but I think that's all we're saying in this recommendation is just trying to disseminate that information and make it available to people.
Yep.
I think this is very minor, but after advise, I think you should change of to students.
Yeah, I
Or
think so.
tenants, because it doesn't have to be just students. It could be tenants.
I agree with you, but this one's specifically about NMU.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't want to ask NMU to advise non-students.
Yeah.
That was a
Unless
good
it's
catch.
faculty, but.
No, that was a good catch. That was one of those, I was working back and forth, cutting and pasting stuff and ended up with an of left there that meant absolutely nothing.
But Jackie, you say that and it's right. We're saying students, but it could easily be employees and faculty. So tenants might be a better word.
Do you maybe want to say to educate students and staff about, because I don't.
Yeah.
If you say tenants, it covers anyone.
Yeah,
but I think it might
broad.
be a little too broad, or a little bit unclear of like what exactly we mean. That's my only concern about that.
FYI, you're not supposed to use the word tenant anymore. You're supposed to use the word resident.
Okay, students and staff.
So then it would be them.
Student, staff, and them.
Great. Okay. Well, do we have any final kind of comments or thoughts about this, and then that previous sentence that I'd added to the student housing section?
Well, it does look like we put the word them in as opposed to students and staff, though.
They put it above.
We mentioned it first.
Okay, yep, I see. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, it sounds like people are okay with that. So the last point that I had, and this was all Dennis is doing here, pages 19 through 20, we just filled out those sections on the North Marquette Opportunity Zone, and then in the section on redevelopment ready community certification and other potential state partnerships. I don't know if folks had thoughts on these. We were starting by the last meeting. I think we had this first paragraph of the opportunity zone, but other than that, this is all new since the last meeting. I don't know if people had thoughts or questions or concerns about this.
I would be very ready for the uproar on the BLP property.
We did
What do you mean?
clarify by putting not being used for recreational purposes.
Okay.
Yeah, Mark, I think that was a good catch, a good recommendation you had back in January, and we tried to make sure to carry that language forward here.
Yep. I get it. I see blowback coming. I mean, I see it as an opportunity as a developer, but I see the blowback coming.
You think that we're going to get the blowback just because they're not going to read the whole paragraph?
They're not gonna want that land touched.
Oh, okay.
There's plenty of property beyond stuff that there's trails on or whatnot, you know.
Yeah, I personally think that the clarification that we have there is probably sufficient, but I'm sure some people will misinterpret what we're saying, but I think we're making it as difficult as possible for them to do so with the current language. Jackie, I'm sorry, I didn't
I was just
interrupt
gonna
you.
say, I think it's written well, and we also don't know if the BLP is interested in letting anyone use that land anyway, so it's just a recommendation to look into it.
Right on.
I agree. Anything on the redevelopment ready communities and other state partnerships? I felt that was pretty cut and dry, but I don't know if anybody has any suggested edits or any concerns about that.
Oh, look good to me.
Wait, the city has funding for me to improve my house in one?
We
Not for
did
you.
at one point in time through the neighborhood stabilization program. That was done, actually Marquette County was a
previously, got it.
partnership, and Marquette County administered that program for us. And there was money available to fix homes.
Yeah.
Neat.
I even just saw the other day, I saw a release of a grant that local governments, nonprofits, land banks, counties, whatever, that can all apply for that. It was a significant chunk of fundings with a large amount of it set aside specifically for rural areas for helping homeowners, I think 120% AMI or below, do home repairs. So there are opportunities out there like that. I want to say it was a federal grant that was going to be administered through MISTA, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
All right. Well, unless anybody has any kind of final comments or thoughts here, that's it as far as the changes that we made. Everything else is the same aside from correcting a few typos or whatever, but some formatting, kind of secretarial stuff. But otherwise, everything is the same as it was in the draft that we reviewed and discussed at our June 2nd meeting. So at this point, I suppose I would open it up for, if there are, beyond these specific additions that we've discussed and these edits that we've made, are there any other changes or edits that, or concerns people have that they would want to raise that they think we should discuss? Because after that, I think we should probably entertain a motion on this report.
I'll go ahead and make a motion. We approve the final report with changes from this meeing.
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I think we've got a second from Jackie there. All those, or is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Yes. All opposed, please say no. All abstaining. All right, so it sounds like that passes 8-0 by my count. So that's a pretty significant achievement. I really appreciate everybody for all of your time and effort and expertise that you have all provided throughout this process. This all started back in January of last year. Here we are 18 months later. I think we've got a really solid final report that I think is offering some real solutions to the significant housing affordability challenges we're facing here in Marquette. And it's because of all the input and the work that you've all done. So I really appreciate everybody's help and support throughout this whole process. I don't know if anybody has any kind of final thoughts or things you'd want to share with the committee. Just so you all know, the next step moving forward is that we'll be sharing this with the mayor, the new city manager, and the city commission, and then hopefully, our recommendations will start getting implemented in the coming months and years here.
Dennis, just as soon as you have, I see you doing the clerical stuff. As soon as you have that final copy, will you email that out to everyone just so we have hard copies? So
Yep.
when people question us on stuff, we have that final version.
Yep, but once I finish putting this in alphabetical order, I'm going to save it as a PDF, and I could probably have that done while we're still here on the meeting, unless if you have other stuff to talk about.
I just want to say I'm thankful I got to serve on this committee. I think that it was a lot of good discussion, and I think our report, I agree with Evan 100%. I think it's got some good solid recommendations for the city commission. I hope they find it helpful. And I just wanted to say thanks for the opportunity to be a part of it.
I'd like to just make a comment about the chairman of our committee, Evan. I thought you did a really good job, Evan, and kept us focused and moved things along very well. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Bob. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. Stephanie, I'm sorry, you were going to say something.
I said ditto. I appreciate that we were all allowed to have voices and different viewpoints, and they were all represented and heard.
And I would say that it's really kind of amazing that we have so many different backgrounds here, and we all were able to come up with an 8-0 vote for our final thing, because it is not an insignificant thing that Evan was able to do, hearing us all in a room with 1 million cats and rocking chairs, really. So
During a pandemic.
during a pandemic, yeah, that was probably easier. We weren't there, so no fist fights break out.
Yeah, I want to say I echo all the comments, and especially thank you, Evan, as chairperson. You really brought it home. This is a national topic. This is a national issue, and to bring it home and bring some very pointed recommendations here is very key for the years to come, as you said. So I was very impressed. I will say that you were able to bring Mr. Paralak, a bunch of other folks that really know their stuff, and thank you for bringing that perspective. That's always helpful to all of us, really. So I'm very appreciative of this committee. A lot of different opinions, but I think we came up with a really good formula here for a start, and I look forward to seeing some of this develop over the years. So thank you all.
I'd also like to say I appreciate Sean and Dennis for all the work with input from the city, what's been done, what is done. And I think having their voices has been very helpful. And I wish we could just all get together on Mark's deck at Rippling River for a drink at some point.
It's always open.
Thanks, Stephanie. You beat me to it on thanking the staff. Yeah, Dennis, thank you so much. Dave Stensis, Sean, Kyle,
You're welcome.
and
I'll
other
be sure to
and
pass it
also
along.
yeah, and also all the other city department heads that met with us at that one meeting. That was really helpful. I mean, so I think that this whole report essentially was I did a little bit of work on it, but it was all prepared by staff in response to the committee's discussions. So I mean, that's critical. And of course, staff at the end of the day, that's where the rubber meets the road. I mean, I'm staff here at Marquette County, and regardless of what the city commission does, if it's not properly implemented, then it's not going to make much difference. So thank you all for all of your work too.
Evan, when this gets presented
Yeah,
to
Stephanie.
the city commission, what's the process?
Well, at this point, I think that we're still kind of defining that. Really, what we're going to do is we're going to forward it to the commission and the city manager and the mayor for their review. And then at that point, I've talked with the mayor a bit, and I mean, our intention is to, at some point, get a work session together specifically about this report, probably multiple work sessions in the coming months. I think that implementing the recommendations about public engagement will be especially important. That's something that we want to get the ball rolling on like immediately. And then, in addition to that, like there are recommendations in the report about strategic planning, which is a process that's ongoing right now. The community master plan update, which will begin very soon. So that's all going to be, these recommendations are all going to be incorporated into those strategic planning and community master planning processes as well.
where, if members of the public want to access this report, now that we've approved it, is it on the website under where our minutes are, or is it going to be on any city commission? I mean, are they going to vote to approve the report as well, or are they just going to look at the recommendation and decide which ones they want to carry out and which ones they don't?
The commission will probably vote on accepting the report.
Okay, so then it would be part of the city commission portion of the website.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure where it's going to be on the website, but what I can tell you is that we currently have, if you go to marquettemi.gov right now, we've got all those like nice little links that you can click right there on the homepage. Our committee is one of those first links. And probably what we will do is either replace or add, either replace the initial report or add the final report to that page. So you'll be able to access it very easily from the homepage of the city website if people want to view the report.
Evan, will you be sharing this on social media?
I am sure I will be. As soon as it's available on the city website, I will probably tomorrow or as soon as it's up.
Okay.
It would encourage other folks to do so too, so we can help spread the word.
Well, I'd rather share from you than straight from the city.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I will most likely be making a post about this tomorrow on my city commission Facebook page, if it's up by then, which.
Right. So I have I'm just going to combine some files here to add the appendices, and then I will have it out to you. So
great. Dennis, do you have an idea of when it will be on the city website?
I'll get back to you on that. I need to see what Sean's bandwidth looks like. I have no idea what Karen's got or anything going on, with this week. It's probably pretty busy over there, but we'll try and get it as soon as we can.
Right.
I can help.
In a sense, the timing is good because we've got a transition. We've got some new leadership at the highest level in the city, but at the same time, in a way, the timing's bad because Karen's just getting onboarded and everybody's very busy right now. So, but yeah, I appreciate that, and I like Antonio's suggestion of we should get together a press release for this. And then I also totally agree we should all get together for drinks at some point in real life here, now that COVID-19 is sort of where that situation is kind of evolving here. So.
All right, we only did appendix through H, right?
I think so. Let me double check.
Oh, you know what I got to add? I'm going to have to add the meeting minutes from last meeting. So
sure. No rush, Dennis. No rush, Dennis. I'm sure we'll get it at some point today, and
I'll send those over to you today with a signature, so you can have them.
Okay. Yeah, I'll make sure we get that. But other than that, I just need to add those minutes, and then we'll be good to go. So you'll have the report probably, let's say, by 3 o'clock today.
Great. All right. Well, thank you to everybody. Stephanie, I see you're already trying to organize a little social gathering down there. I'm sure we can do that over email. That's fine.
Yeah.
In any case, I really appreciate everybody taking time today and the last 18 months. And I think we will adjourn here at 11:22 a.m.
Hey, thanks, everybody.